In the final years of World War II, a secret war was unfolding beneath the oceans. One not of bullets and bombs, but of blueprints, uranium, and whispered desperation. Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, two pillars of the Axis alliance, sought to defy the limits of geography by connecting their empires through the deep. Their bridge? The submarine. Silent, long-range, deadly. It was beneath the waves that the Axis dreamed of sharing their deadliest secrets, and where the United States Navy fought to stop them. This is the story of the Axis Submarine Alliance, a chapter of World War II where U-boats and I-boats carried gold, scientists, and nuclear material across oceans, and where most never returned. Thousands of miles separated Nazi Germany from Imperial Japan. Though united in ideology, fascism, militarism, anti-communism, they were divided by vast oceans and the logistical impossibility of moving troops and weapons quickly between continents. Yet their shared hatred of America and the Allies drove them to find a way. Despite the physical distance, both Germany and Japan understood they had something the other needed. Germany had radar, jet engines, and encrypted communications. Japan had access to rubber, tin, and natural resources the Nazi war machine desperately needed. And so a plan was born, one that would unfold in total secrecy and often end in death. They called them the Yanagi missions, classified submarine exchange missions. The stakes were enormous. Some submarines carried millions in gold, others carried jet fighter blueprints or uranium intended for Japan's atomic research. Still others ferried diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. The oceans were no longer safe. The Allied blockade was tightening. The United States Navy dominated the Atlantic. British codebreakers were intercepting Axis signals. Every submarine sent on these missions risked detection and destruction. This documentary will explore these submarine exchanges in depth. From U-234, the German U-boat that surrendered with uranium bound for Japan, to I-52, sunk mid-ocean with gold and secrets. This is not just a story of submarines. It's a story of desperation, invention, betrayal, and what could have happened if even one mission had gone differently. Let's begin. In September 1940, Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Tripartite Pact, a formal declaration of alliance. On paper, the Axis was united. In reality, each pursued separate goals. Germany focused on Europe. Japan expanded across Asia and the Pacific. And yet both sought to cooperate beyond ideology, by exchanging military technology, resources, and intelligence. But geography stood in the way. There were no safe overland routes, no air corridors. Only the oceans, which by 1942 were heavily patrolled by the Allies. Japan needed German radar systems, Enigma encryption machines, and jet aircraft technology. Germany needed Japan's tin, rubber, and rare resources. With surface convoys too vulnerable, the only option was undersea. Long-range submarines traveling thousands of miles between Axis-held ports. Despite incompatible command structures, languages, and submarine designs, both powers agreed to launch submarine exchange missions. The Japanese called them Yanagi, willow missions, a nod to flexibility under pressure. What followed was one of the most secretive and dangerous operations of the war. In April 1942, Japanese submarine I-30 departed for Nazi-occupied France. It arrived in Lorient months later, collecting radar parts and blueprints. But on its return voyage, it hit a British mine and sank. A partial success, and a warning. Next came I-8, which reached France in 1943 and returned carrying Enigma machines, ball bearings, and German engineers. But during its mission, the I-8 crew committed war crimes, executing Allied prisoners from merchant ships. It returned home with cargo and infamy. Then came I-29, the most ambitious mission yet. After successfully reaching Europe, it loaded blueprints for the Me-262 jet fighter, anti-aircraft radar, and rocket components. But on its return, U.S. codebreakers intercepted its position. The USS Sawfish ambushed and sank it in July 1944. Almost all aboard were lost. With each mission, the danger increased, and so did the desperation. In April 1945, Germany launched its final and most dangerous mission, U-234, a Type X B U-boat converted into a long-range transport submarine. On board, jet engine parts, radar systems, advanced optical gear, military advisors, and, most notably, 550 kilograms of uranium oxide, stored in lead-lined containers. Also aboard were 2 Imperial Japanese Navy officers and several German scientists. Their destination? Tokyo. But the world above them was collapsing. Hitler had committed suicide. Berlin was surrounded. Germany's unconditional surrender was only days away. On May 10th, U-234 surfaced off the coast of Newfoundland and surrendered to the USS Sutton. The Japanese officers took their own lives aboard the sub. The rest of the crew was taken prisoner. The uranium was seized by U.S. forces. Some historians believe it was transferred to the Manhattan Project and possibly used in the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. U-234's failure prevented Japan from receiving nuclear material, and perhaps spared the world a very different kind of ending to the war. The Allies weren't guessing, they were listening. British codebreakers at Bletchley Park, under the Ultra program, had cracked the German Enigma cipher. At the same time, American cryptologists cracked the Japanese Purple Code under Project Magic. With both systems compromised, Allied forces could intercept, decode, and act on Axis submarine mission details in near real time. The sinking of I-29 was made possible by Ultra intercepts. The I-52, carrying gold to Germany, was located by sonar-equipped aircraft from the USS Bogue after intercepted messages revealed its route. The sub was destroyed by depth charges and an acoustic torpedo. These were not lucky strikes. They were operations based on mathematics, pattern recognition, and silence. And they turned the oceans into traps. German suspicions that Enigma had been compromised were ignored. Japanese officers believed their language offered inherent encryption. But both were wrong. And because of that, mission after mission failed, long before the submarines were ever seen. What if Japan had received the uranium? What if they had developed a working bomb, or even a dirty bomb? What if they had operational Me-262 jet fighters able to intercept U.S. B-29 bombers? Could the Pacific War have been extended into 1946 or 1947? Japan had its own atomic programs, the Army's NEGO and the Navy's FGO projects, but lacked materials and infrastructure. With U-234's uranium and German engineers, even a crude nuclear or radiological device might have been feasible. Imagine kamikaze missions with radioactive payloads. Imagine jet-powered interceptors halting American bombing raids. Imagine if Operation Downfall, the planned Allied invasion of Japan, had gone ahead with a strengthened Axis defense. And imagine the Soviet Union entering the war later, seizing Hokkaido and splitting Japan like Korea. These what-ifs didn't come to pass, because the Axis submarine alliance failed, because their technology didn't arrive in time, because the oceans and the men who patrolled them stopped it. By late 1944, the Axis was crumbling. Germany was nearing total collapse. Japan was isolated, its navy devastated, its cities under constant bombardment. And yet, Japan continued sending submarines, not out of hope, but out of ethic and desperation. The most advanced of them was the I-400 class, the largest submarines ever built at the time. These were not just transports. They were submarine aircraft carriers, capable of launching bomber aircraft from their decks. Japan built 3, I-400, I-401, and I-402. Their final mission, ordered in mid-1945, was to launch a surprise strike on Ulithi Atoll, a major U.S. naval base in the Pacific. But the mission was never carried out. Japan surrendered in August 1945 after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I-401 surrendered at sea to the U.S. Navy. When American sailors boarded her, they were shocked at the scale and design of the vessel, and the fact that it had come so close to launching one last kamikaze blow. Post-war, the U.S. sank many of these captured submarines, including I-401 and I-400, to prevent the Soviets from studying them. Others disappeared silently into the ocean depths. Over time, these wrecks were found. In 1995, I-52 was discovered at 17,000 feet beneath the Atlantic. Its gold cargo likely remains aboard. In 2005, I-401 was located off the coast of Hawaii, nearly intact. These submarines are more than machines. They are relics of a failed dream. Silent tombs from a war that nearly turned darker than we can imagine. In every war, there are stories, not told through the clash of armies or the roar of gunfire, but in the silence between them, in the messages intercepted, the submarines that never surfaced, and the cargo that never reached its destination. The Axis Submarine Alliance was one of those stories. It was a final, desperate attempt by two collapsing empires to remain connected, not by trust or ideology, but by steel, oil, and secrecy. Their submarines carried gold, radar systems, aircraft designs, and uranium. But most of all, they carried hope, false hope, that the war could still be won. They were wrong. Because Allied cryptographers, sonar operators, and patrol crews made sure that most of those submarines never reached their targets. They turned the world's oceans into graveyards, and in doing so, they changed history. The Axis powers believed they could outthink, outbuild, and outlast the world. But the oceans were not theirs to command. Beneath the waves, their alliance died. Mission by mission, wreck by wreck. Let us remember the submarines that sailed. Let us remember those that were stopped. And let us remember the lives saved, because they failed. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. George Santayana. If you've come this far, thank you. You've just experienced a true story many have never heard, one of silence, sacrifice, and what might have been. If you found this story compelling, subscribe to World War II Human Stories for more untold chapters of the Second World War. From the depths of the sea to the skies over Europe, we bring you the hidden human side of history. New episodes coming soon. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what history left behind.